Hello and welcome. I'm Jonathan Hefter, and welcome to another episode of Coming Home to Homemade Theater, our online interview series meant to draw attention to the plight of local arts and, of course, spotlight Homemade Theater, Saratoga's resident theater company. Very pleased today for a wonderful special guest. Please join me in welcoming the captain of the Capitol, our good friend, Patrick White. Please welcome Patrick. Thank you for coming today.
Thanks so much, Jonathan. Thank you.
I just gave you that title off the cuff there.
Yeah, Elisa Harrington Verb has tried the ambassador or something, but captain, I like it.
The captain of the Capitol.
Captain.
Well, it's true, and I think local theater has no greater friend, Patrick, than you. You're so very active in drawing attention and awareness and support for regional theater of all kinds and the arts in general. And so it's such a thrill to have you here as we continue our discussion about the importance of arts during this time to keep us sustained and sane. Tell me a little bit about how you got to the place where you are considered by many, not just by me, as really the face of regional theater and helping to drum up support and activism for local theater. How did it go from Patrick on the stage to Patrick leading the daily Facebook quiz show of keeping theater on the forefront of our minds?
Yeah, that's a new iteration. That's a new job title that I've started, that 518 Theater Artist Facebook page. I don't know, it's like with anything, I guess it's like get obsessed, stay obsessed. Like, you start feeding something and it just grows, and there was a point when I pivoted outside of, the dressing room mirror and looking at myself, and I turned and I looked at other theaters or other actors, and I was like, oh, there's a whole world. I've always been an avid theater goer, but there was a time when I kind of broke out of the silo of Albany Civic Theater, and it just kept growing, and it just, I enjoy the Capital Region so much, and it's so extraordinary where we live. Being 2.5 hours away from New York City and Boston and Hartford, the Poughkeepsie and the Berkshires, and everything that's going on, that we have 60 theaters, 8 colleges, 60 school districts, all like with this, it's not just me, with this theater mad love, and it's just extraordinary. And the more I go, the more I wanted to go. But there were a couple of turning points of, leaving the building I was in and going out. And usually it came from rejection, it came from, submitting plays that weren't being chosen or not being cast, or things like that. And then, you start going to Schenectady, you start going to Confetti, Homemade, and it was like, it was very eye-opening. And, and I think, I talked to a dear friend of mine, Dick Feldman, and they used to call, like, people who would work at Schenectady and Albany, like there were like 2 or 3, theaters back in the old days.
Yeah.
And they would call, if you worked at more than one house, you were a whore. The theater whores, that worked there, and there. But now, there are so many opportunities in so many places to direct, to act. It's just awesome, and everyone's growing. There are more participants. It's more inclusive. There are 3 Black companies, Illuminate, Black Theater Troupe, Callaloo. That's crazy. I mean, crazy good. It used to be, if someone scheduled 6 degrees of separation, oh, how are we going to cast Paul?
I've
very
heard
long.
every time at a table read or any kind of artistic discussion across all the companies when they say, how will we cast that? It's one of my least favorite objections to choosing titles, because it is an actor's market in the capital region for sure. And I do feel like if you mount it, they will come. And I mean, you would know better than I do, but I don't think there's ever been a production that has not flown because it couldn't be cast. It always ends up
Well,
happening in one way or the other.
well, there, that is true, but at the same time, you have to work. I mean, and you can't take it for granted. You just
Oh,
can't
sure.
put out a post on Capdist auditions. When I did an inspector calls, I knew I wanted it to be inclusive, right? And but I had been attending Black Theater Troupe since it was formed. Like we used to get together, Remy and I, we would get together at Albany Public Library and read piano lesson, just like people would just show up and we hand out parts and just read it. So I had known him like 20 years, but I started attending Morgan's
Mhm.
Illuminate salons where she would get people up and do a song or a poem or spoken word. And that's how I met Carmen, who I
Mhm.
cast. And I think I met Carol Durant, and I met someone else at the Illuminate in November at Proctor's, and I invited them to come to audition. And I posted flyers in the Schenectady libraries because people who might be interested in theater, but haven't done it for a while, they don't know about Capdist auditions, right? Right? They don't
I know.
know, how to get in the door. So if you have to go to the grocery store or the church or the library where you can find someone who said, I used to do theater.
And you stayed so active even during this time. You directed Cry It Out for Homemade Theater, which is staged just outside, adjacent to the entrance to the building. Can you talk a little bit? And you have your acting classes, your virtual classes. Can you talk a little bit about the arts in this time, theater in particular, about the outreach and the kind of, there are a lot of people living solitary lives out there and who have gone within during this period. And as you said, the flyers in the library that let people know, hey, there's another way to spend your week, perhaps. What are you hearing out there? What is the vibe in your classes? What are people sharing about what it means to come together during this time?
That's one of the cool things about Zooming and things like that was I remember, very clearly Quarantine E-Theater when they started out back in April of last year. And, just seeing all the boxes filled with people, that you had worked with, and some that were new and you met people. There were a number of people that and this 518 theater artist Facebook page, it's not my page. It was started by a group up in Glens Falls.
Oh,
It
really?
was like Glens Falls Community Theater. There are a number of people on there that I have never met in person, but I have a daily conversation with them on Facebook. In my virtual class, I've had a number of people. I have a student from California who used to work here, and she moved away. And she shows up every Saturday morning, and we have,
Wow.
she's in my Zoom acting class. There are also a couple of people that I've never met in person. In that regards, I'm almost tempted to say that I've met more people in the last year than I did when we were actually physically in buildings. That I don't know. That might be an exaggeration, but there's a lot of people I've met in the past year.
At least geographically diverse in a way that you or I weren't doing the year before last, in 2019.
Yeah.
Your email signature says actor and director, educator, reviewer. Can you share a little bit with our viewers? Share with our viewers, Patrick, a little bit about the different facets of your theatrical efforts and how you got into particularly reviewing and teaching. How do you go from a stage, I want to talk a little bit about some of your early experiences, to reviewing and then becoming a teacher? How does that switch also happens?
the Capital Region is also fantastic in the number of opportunities it has afforded me to put on different hats. I figured, I go to see hundreds of plays a year. I might know something, so I can share that with people. And there were a number of things because they just don't get the coverage. Because not that there isn't arts coverage in the Capital Region, there certainly is, but they'll tell you themselves that they're stretched thin and there's a lot going on. So I just figured, oh, I can do this. I can do this as well, and it's needed, and I thought it was valuable to start reviewing, and I think I did like 60 or 70 reviews before the pandemic. I started in June of 19, something like that, for Nippertown. So it was not even a year. Yeah, I guess I just thought that it was something that was needed, and I felt like I could do it. And I could have used the free tickets. So I was like, I was gonna go and see the show anyway, but I can write about it and talk about things that I like and things that I want to encourage, and put a spotlight on great stuff.
And you hold, I think, like an informal contest to guess how many productions you and your partner will see each year. What's the most, and just in the last couple of years that you've really turned it up and gone into the triple digits, or has this been going for a few years?
A few years we've been over 100. But there was an article in the New York Times this weekend about this guy who saw 105 shows. I was
And
like,
I think I saw it in the it came in
no,
the
it
e-newsletter, and
was
they put him up there as like it was the world record, and you can't
it
imagine
was a
what his life is
lovely
like.
piece. It was really a sweet piece. But a couple of people pointed it out to me and said, "Did you read about this guy?" Yeah, no. Chris and I went to go see 317 shows last year, 2019, 2 years ago, and 2018 I think was 275, something like that. Yeah, we do have a contest of guess how many shows we, and really it's just, and people say, good friends will say, I saw 20. And I'm like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And also they're keeping count. So it's like, I know you're seeing more shows than you would have, because if you're counting, they may have only gone to see 15, but now they'll tell me, I went to go see 20 shows. I'm like, fantastic. What was your favorite?
Now, I want to ask you what some of your favorites have been, because I know you don't want to play favorites, but so you've seen the inside of all these houses in the region, but I know one of your early starts was actually in the Spa Litter Theater when it was the pardon me, when it was the John Houseman Theater quite a while ago. And we'll cut to a photo that you sent along. Thank you for sending it. Talk a little bit about, if you can, about your early experiences and how you came to be on the Spa Little Theater stage back in
Yeah, that was crazy. That was a really awesome introduction. I was 17 in that photo. It's witness for the prosecution. I played the warder. I think I had a line, this way, sir, or something.
Nicely done.
Yes, thank you. Tom Pleto played Leonard Vole, and Gary Deming played prosecution. I think it was Robart. No, Robarts is the defense. Yeah. Anyway, my mother, she saw I was kind of casting about in high school, and she would hear things like on WGY radio, like Ellie Pankin or something, and say, "Oh, there's a theater program." And there was a summer theater program for kids, like a playground at Shaker High School, and I did that. And it was a very interesting guy. Directed, a bunch of 15-year-olds in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Oh, wow.
And
That's an
yeah,
interesting
yeah,
staging.
yes, yeah. And the next year, I think we did Bus Stop, which is also, perfect for children.
Exactly.
But it was great. It was great stuff. But she heard about what used to be the Empire State Institute for Performing Arts, which morphed into the New York State Theater Institute. And they used to perform in the Egg. And I
Yep.
did my senior year in high school. So unhappy in high school that I did my entire senior year, like work study credit as an intern at the Empire State Institute for Performing Arts at the Egg. And I got cast in Witness for the Prosecution, which went up in November of 1980 at the Egg. They used to do a season of 6 shows and bring school groups from throughout the capital region into the Egg, for school shows. And then they also did tours. They went to Syracuse. I went to Long Island, Cold Spring Harbor with Diarrhea Van Frank. I was one of the Nazis that broke down the attic at the end of the play.
This is all at
But
like 17 years old,
yeah,
17,
yeah,
18.
yeah, yeah. When I
Amazing.
was in high school, and that summer they did a summer residency at the John Houseman Theater, which named because he brought the acting company from Juilliard, which he founded, up to Saratoga Springs, and the theater was named after him for a number of years. And Empire State Institute, Pat Snyder, her group, who she's an arts giant living in Saratoga, her group had a summer residency up there. And I think they may have done 2 shows. I'm not sure. But I know that show was designed to fit into both the Egg,
Mhm.
which is, a huge theater, the main stage, and it also needed to fit into the Houseman. And that set moves from the office into the Old Bailey courtroom. So it had to rotate, and then 2 wagons came in for the defense and for a jury. And yeah, it was pretty. And the little theater, to be there. I mean, one, to be working in the Egg, when you're 17, and like being up in the flies and hanging lights and stuff. Cinderella, I was running Peter Foy, Flying by Foy, who
Oh, yeah.
developed these things of flying. He came in and did the production of Cinderella. I didn't realize it at the time, but I was working with these giants in the industry. But
And your internship was also technical, right? You were manning some crew
right,
positions, and then you got
you
the
would build
shots of,
sets up.
yep.
Yeah, I was interested in acting, but I was cast in that role, and we did an intern show or something. But most of the time, I was doing publicity or I was building sets. They had this huge set that they did for Midsummer Night's Dream. I remember, hours spent with a skill saw, cutting out these leaves of trees. It was like, yeah. But
One leaf
yeah,
at a
I
time.
actually, on my Regents diploma, I think the sequence of credits was not, as my father would have wished, science or math. It was industrial arts.
And the photos that you sent along, I was looking through them again today, Patrick. And I thought this is like he's like the Gary Oldman of regional theater, in that you have such a radically different, and we'll cut to them here, a physical look in each of these productions. If you go on just 3 years after that, in '84, you're working with the American Academy of Dramatic Arts and doing your best Mickey Rourke there, especially with all the jewelry. And then, if you just take through these, it seems um, like here's a man who can do anything and really slip into any time period. And then, of course, some later shots here of your directing. You directed The Foreigner at Homemade Theater. Um, and of course, then recently cry it out. Um, how does those two stack up for you, like performing and directing? You're doing, of course, much more directing and instructing now. When's the last time you auditioned for something, and do you miss it? And
I did some Zoom acting. I did a play or two, I think, over the pandemic. I was cast in, I was supposed to go up. There's a theater in Cortland, Cortland Repertory Theater, which somehow I got affiliated with, and I've done 3 shows up there, and I was supposed to do a 4th in the summer of 20. I was supposed to be Senator Billboard Rawkins in Finian's Rainbow.
oh, sure.
He's the racist senator before he gets struck into a black man.
No
But
senators are racist. You know that.
so I do my acting out of town now. I keep it up in Cortland.
You go
No,
workshop it out of town, and then you
right,
direct locally.
right. There was a year when I did Waiting for Godot, Night of the Iguana, The Night Alive, and Charlie's Aunt. And I did those 4, and I think I directed Clever Little Lies in the summer. But I did those 4, and I was like, what else are you gonna do? Like, you can keep chasing this, but that's as good as it gets. Like you can't, really ask for more. you know I was like, so I kind of like tapped it and said, I could turn, I think I can bring more attention, my passions, like when I turn my focus on something, like for the auditions of Inspector Calls, I have more to give than acting. So it's
You
like I
think?
could move into directing, and it's like what I wanted to do with, as far as pushing the audition forward, as far as publicizing the show, doing interviews, reaching out to people. I thought I could do more directing. I thought I'd be of more service.
But I did appreciate your reading of the few lines of Beverly in August Osage County when I dropped into the quarantine theater online there. Just I think the pandemic was just starting. Things had just shut down. That must have been like May or something. We came
Yeah,
together
yeah, yeah,
for
yeah.
that reading. That's I still hope that can happen down the line. Me and the director
Yeah,
search
that's
for
an
August
awesome
Osage County.
play.
Oh, it's
Everyone that talked about that play, they were like, "Why hasn't Homemade done this?" We're like, Homemade, do this play.
yeah, we announced it and everything. So hopefully it'll come back. Tell me a little bit about the online engagement. Like you said, it was a little bit like you put it out there and it feeds itself. And for those that don't know, as you said, 518 Theater Artists, Nippertown, you're out there with the question or sometimes questions of the day. What are you hearing out there about actors? Are they restless? Has this spawned some kind of self-reliant creativity? Are people spinning up their own projects as a result of not being able to go to auditions? Are people kind of hibernating? What's your sense of what's going on with the not just acting but the creative population out there in general?
Yeah, there's a lot of everything going on. Unfortunately, very little in the way of like concrete plans. Like no one's really, I haven't heard any dates or things like that. Uh, as far as physical, in-house productions, which I keep agitating or looking. I've been talking to Remy about a production we want to do in a park. Trying to find a space to do something in. Like I don't see like new projects like really taking off online. There's tonight. There's another quarantine theater, and I think a lot of people kind of recognize it as being valuable in this time, but not something that is growing or
Mm-hmm.
looking towards the future for. I think everyone's kind of like waiting for, you know, an, you know, all clear. I have been doing in-person classes at Albany Barn since November, and we are planning in the early stages of planning a scene night to have invited audience in. So that's what's, coming up for me. But
yeah, it does seem like a lot of the digital activity is to bide our time, or it's a stopgap effort. Doesn't feel like the new norm yet. It feels like everybody's waiting for somebody to step out and say, this is what a season's programming will look like. If I'm not mistaken, I think it's either Berkshire Theater Festival or like Shakespeare and Company have had, one of those out there have had a little bit more of a
right.
strategic plan that involves some
Shakespeare and
in-person.
Company has a couple of outdoor stages.
Yeah.
We went to go see something. Halloween. They did a Halloween
Right.
like collection of Shakespeare, spooky Shakespeare, and they had an outdoor stage which could seat, up to like 100 people. And they've got another stage that could seat well over 100 people, depending on distancing and stuff. Chester Theater Company is doing a season in Lenox at the Shaker Historical Site, and they're doing
really?
three. Yeah, they're doing 3 plays. They've announced them: Title and Deed by Will Eno, The Niceties by Eleanor Burgess, and Tiny Beautiful Things. Awesome play by Nia Vardolis and Cheryl Strayed. They're doing 3 plays in Lenox.
And a good location for it too, because they have the grounds and.
Yeah. So I'm Barrington. I heard they're going to try and do some stuff indoors, and they have a 500-seat theater. I think they're going to cap it at 100 or something, 120, something like that. Glimmer Glass is doing a season of operas, 4 90-minute operas. They're doing it outside in a tent. I know Lincoln Center is going to have outdoor stages. So that's what I've heard so far.
And what's your calendar look like as we dream about summer? What do you have planned?
Yeah, like what I just said. I'm kind of hoping that the Canadian border opens up because the Shaw Festival is performing as well. So that'd be nice. But yeah, I'll definitely be over at Lenox. I'll definitely be in Pittsfield for Barrington Stage and Stockbridge for Shakespeare and Company. But I got nothing. I'm right now. Nothing in the capital region. I've had some talks with Curtain Call, just preliminary talks, and what size play to do indoors. We had the plug pulled on An Act of God, which was 3 characters, easy to do, socially distanced and masked, and so that's a possibility to pick up again. But I don't know what else. So nothing scheduled for me to direct, but hopefully a lot of stuff to go see.
Well, it's only a matter of time before we should do something together. That would be fun. I'm missing it missing it very. It's so funny. It's the morning after strike, Patrick, when everybody in the company, I sometimes feel like particularly the director and the stage manager get sick because you've held it in for the 6 weeks or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, depending on the rehearsal period. I'm when you look around at all the laundry you haven't done and the empty refrigerator, but you're so in the rhythm of it now, you're probably integrated. You don't put your life on hold. Theater has become so much part of your life. You probably don't suffer from this anymore, but I'm getting to the point where I'm at least for me personally, like so busy with so many non-theater things. I think to myself, how did I ever do all of this and a production? But you know what? You find a way. And I think people are actually looking forward to, whether it's how they make their money or whatever that's been going on for the last year, not being the entirety of how they spend their days. And I'm really getting in touch with and talking with others, the grief that so many local theater artists are feeling, not being able to do the thing that keeps them going, right? Not that everybody's miserable at their job, that's not what I'm saying, but there is definitely something palpable, physical, that's missing in their lives, and they would give anything to be exhausted at the end of a 4 or 6 week rehearsal period again. So I hope that what we're chatting about becomes nostalgic and a distant memory soon enough, and that we get
Yeah,
handed the directing keys to something before we know it.
yeah, God willing.
Well,
Yeah,
Patrick White, did, like I said at the top, local theater of all types has no greater friend than you, actor, director, reviewer, educator, friend to all. Thank you for stirring up the good conversations online. 518 Theater Artists and Nippertown, homemadetheater.org to find out more ways that you can support homemade theater specifically, but any theater company needs your support. So get out and, as Patrick is doing, make a connection with the individuals behind the productions. Patrick, thanks so much for taking time. It's been a pleasure to connect at length. Been meaning to do this for a while.
yeah, thank you. Thank you. Great talking to you, Jonathan.
You too. And stay tuned for our next episode of Coming Home to Homemade Theater. We'll see you down the road. Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.